Welcome to High Point, Paul.
Thank you, Mark.
After 30 minutes, an hour of solving glitches, technological problems, we're there. So, as any guest, I've got loads of questions to ask you about your background, the creation of Ecococon, your other activities as well, and then maybe more on to the producing the panels, what it takes, where's the factory, how much it costs to build the factory. I've got general questions about straw and maybe some misconceptions, ideas, and the main barriers to a wide adoption of those panels, certifications problems, some performances as well. We'll talk a little bit about the acoustics example of projects and maybe the future plans. Can I ask you to introduce yourself the way you would like to be introduced first?
So my name is Paul Lynch. Originally Irishman, but I've been living in the Nordics, particularly in Finland, for the last 24 years. So my kids are all grown up here. We've settled here in the south of Finland. I suppose I've got 3 kids, and my wife is Finnish. We've been working, I think it started 22 years ago when we moved here first. I got into natural building through building my own house here in Finland, actually. And we started, we were looking for materials to build our house within the most natural way possible. And it actually, back then, it was quite hard. It was quite hard to find things even here in Finland. Of course, you had wooden houses and log houses, but they were all still using fiberglass insulations. We wanted something that was completely breathable back then. And I don't know why we started on this pathway. I suppose we were always into healthy living, eating good foods, and my wife is a homeopath, and we just wanted to do things. It just made sense to us to live in something that was healthy. But we found it very difficult, actually, to find these materials. And the journey took us on it was a long path. We eventually found a house company who wanted to use cellulose insulation, which was quite new, this blown-in cellulose insulation back then. And we built a wooden house with all paper insulation and paper materials, and but we couldn't find natural paints, we couldn't find natural waxes, and it was difficult. Things were just really, nobody knew about these things back then.
I think I've discovered recently paint is pretty bad, like normal paint. It's got a lot of plastic inside, and it's in the with Simon Corby in the episode with him that I discovered it.
It is pretty bad, and actually I've learned a lot about paints. I'm like my journey is long in the building world. I was a painter decorator. I've worked on labourers on sites when I was younger. Renovating houses for my parents when I was younger. So I did woodwork and technical drawing in school. So my background was always towards using my hands and stuff. So building this house. Couldn't find materials. We built our house and we found enough materials, but it sparked me into wanting to do more. I started doing restoration courses here. I started a company on my own, working with another guy restoring churches and log buildings, and did lots of log courses. And we found in those that most of the damage was done by somebody building in the 70s or 80s, putting plastic inside the logs up against the walls, and therefore they're not breathing. And then the logs were rotting and everything was rotting, and they were creating molds. So we were finding a roll-on effect. So we have this rot from plastic materials where these houses would have been 400 years old, log buildings, and never had a problem until somebody put plastic on the inside. So we were just taking all this knowledge, and then we found clay on the walls inside these houses. That was, a coat of clay that was put on 100 years ago. And we're like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then we started Googling, looking at clay, or Googling back then, but looking at the clay products, and then we started going to Europe to clay courses. And it's a long story short, this is how I met Ecococon. I went to a course in Slovakia in 2008. Erasmus paid for 1 week with Bill and Athena Steen from the US teaching it, and we saw straw bales for the first time. We were plastering straw bales, and we were plastering walls and doing all these decorative carvings with clays. And so we got really into this, and we started going to more courses, went to Amazon Nails courses in London and in England, and went to Estonia for a lot of courses, and we traveled around. Eventually we got busy. We started going, okay, we want to do straw bale building. So we started messing around with straw bale building. We were still restoring, and we brought Amazon Nails here to Finland to teach us how to do straw bale building. So this is like 2008, 2009. And we did the first straw bale building for us. There was many already built in Finland, but the people who built them were gone. They would say that stuff. So we started a new revolution of doing this. And then at the start, it was 2 of us, and all of a sudden it was 3 of us, and then it was 5 of us. And we were architects and builders, and we were working like this for a long time. And then we started a company called Natural Building Company, which we had for 15 years. And our goal was to make it possible for every person to live and work in a healthy home. Boy, was it difficult at the start. We were shunned down upon, called crazy people, hippies, seriously, people didn't want it. But we kept it going, and we got better and better at it. We started building straw bale houses. And two houses we were building in one particular area, and one couple was having a difficulty getting permission from the council, and we needed some certification. So I went online. I looked who was online, found Ecococon. I rang Ecococon and said, hey, we need some certifications. We see that you've done a lot of certifications. Can we use these? Just so happened they were coming to Finland to a fair the following month and asked would we join them at the fair. And that's where it started. That was 13 years ago. So then we met Ecococon, went to a fair with them, decided to be the resellers for them in Finland. Of course, we were next to Sweden, so they asked could we help out with Sweden. We said, okay. So we then based our whole business around Ecococon, because now we have a modular system certified. The councils understood it. It was better for the people to sell to because it was modular. They got it. It was like, okay, this goes up much faster. And it's in a timber frame. We know timber. So it just made everything simpler for us. So for the next, shall I say, 8 years, we basically, in our architect's office, which we had, we designed Ecococon houses. We did type houses. We did bespoke houses. We did school buildings. We promoted Ecococon. But we were also suppliers of clay plasters, lime plasters, Cadillacs. We had about 30 people working in the company with us. I put down the company about 5 years ago. Took a little sabbatical, and then Ecococon asked me to join them and keep going as a representative in the Nordics. So I became director of Ecococon Nordic, which we started 3 years ago now. So it's a sister company of Ecococon here in the Nordics. And a couple of years ago, I was asked to be the international sales manager. So it just rolled on, and now I'm the development manager as well, business development manager. And Ecococon has gone from strength to strength from there. And it was like, okay, I left away working with building beautiful houses and doing amazing things. And we put down the company, and all the guys worked with us. They all started their own companies. So they sprang off into their own companies, and they're all building Ecococon now in natural building materials. And now it's quite normal to build with natural materials. Normal builders here in Finland, they use natural insulations and plasters and clay plasters. And so we kind of won't take full credit for it, but I think we were a huge part of how the whole natural building world in Finland took off. So I run now the Nordics. I run Sweden and Finland, and I run Ireland. As being an Irish person, I was asked to take over that, and we're developing all these markets. And
Is it in France as well? Yes.
Yes, we actually have our own company in France as well, which we started end of 2024, but we have been building it up. We have a French representative director there also. So we're basically in 30 countries now on 3 continents. We have supplied to 30 countries, and we have either what we call a technical sales consultant or a partner, a full-time employee in most countries. So we're almost in every country in Europe. And when I say we're in the country, we have supplied houses to those countries to somebody there. It can be a building company or an architect office. And then someone from those companies or a representative wants to join us, and then we do a training and train them in, and we work with them. So.
A question, maybe a discussion that is not related to Ecococon at all. Or did you go to university? What's your education? Do you have any degrees?
I left school. I got into the school of life, and I decided no university. I wanted to experience work.
I'm asking because in my mind, I went to university, and I feel like it's the way to go for a good career. But then I've got kids, so I wonder what's the best way? Shall I encourage them to go to do school and then university, or will they be suited for university? at all, or to normal education, standard education? There's I hear a lot more about homeschooling. There's some people I work with who are. There's one person. If you hear me, he's on a boat. He's an engineer. He's got his own company, and he's just traveling around the world. And he's doing homeschooling on his boat with his kids, and also like there's you don't have to go. You may not have to go to uni. You can still be qualified and learn exactly the same things, but not go in a full uni setting. What's your experience, and what's the advice you would give to somebody who doesn't feel like they can't go to uni, but they want to do something?
There's lots of ways out there. I mean, I got into university, but I decided I didn't want to go. I wasn't maybe the brightest student, but I wasn't certainly the worst student either. I did quite well in my leaving cert results. But I decided it wasn't for me. There was something more for me. I wanted to get out there and do stuff. My kids joke at me sometimes because I have so many backgrounds. I've been everything from screen printer to a kindergarten teacher to I've tried different things, and I grew up in the restaurant pub business all our lives doing that. So, I did certain courses. I did evening courses. I did business courses. I did management courses, but I experienced life. And that's, there is two ways to look at it. We encouraged our kids. Our kids are, 23, 19 and 18 now. We've encouraged them to do what they want to do, and what they feel happy doing. My daughter left school and went to university here in Finland. She spent 6 months there and she said, I can't do this. I just spent 12 years of my life in school. I can't do this. So she dropped out and she worked for a year. And then she figured out what she wanted to do. And now she's in college in Sweden, northern Sweden. And she's a farrier. She's a horseshoe maker. She loves horses. She works with horses. And she thought, could be a great career. She can see where it goes on. And for us, that was like, okay, that's cool. You found your strength. You found the thing you want to do. And that's the advice I would give. I think there's a lot of pressure, especially in the 90s, 2000s, to go to university. And there's lots of kids who come out of university not actually enjoyed what they did and just did it because it was something to do. And now they're a little bit lost. You got to follow your heart. That would be my advice to any kid. My other son's a footballer. He's playing semi-pro football now. He's been in the US and he's now in Ireland and he's gone back to the US. My other son wants to be a pilot. These are their ideas. It's nothing to do with us, and they're feeling it. And you've got to experience your life. So you will get some people who go to university, and that's what the world needs too, and it's really good. But I think in the end, you got to follow your heart. And I know that I followed my heart. I just went with it, and eventually I found a thing that I was good at. But the combination of all the other things I did helped me to get there as well. And that's helped me in developing who I am now. 10, 15 years ago, if you told me I was going to be an international development manager or business manager for a company like Ecococon, I would have gone, don't know how I can see myself getting there. But I'm here. I'm enjoying it. And I love my job. I love doing what I'm doing now. Love meeting all the people. So I think it's an interesting question, but I think you got to follow the heart.
Yeah, it's like the message definitely is not, obviously, it wasn't said, obviously, but was kind of implied that if you don't go to uni, you can't be successful.
I don't think so. I think there's a major amount of people out there who are super successful and they've not been anywhere near uni, and they do it in a very different way.
So back to Ecococon, I've got a few questions about straw and probably misconceptions, but is straw durable enough for modern consumptions?
Yes. Well, I think history shows that it's durable enough. We have, there's been straw found in buildings that are up to 4,000 years old. It's mixed with clay or beside the clay or somewhat in there, but it's there and it's still dry. If you take in Montargis, just outside Paris, which you may know, you have the Straw Bale Association's house, which is almost 107 years old now. The walls of this have been opened many times and people can look inside the walls and the straw is completely dry. You have the houses in Nebraska, which were built 120 to 160 years ago. They don't actually know which ones are the oldest or no, there's some theories. These are all, it's called the Nebraskan method. They're all load-bearing straw bale buildings, so very little wood in them, and they're still being used today. There's churches, there's schools, there's people's houses, and they're still living in them. I think what you have to look at is, straw, like any other bio-based material or wood, like those log houses I spoke about that were rotting. If they're not looked after, of course, you're going to have problems. But if they're kept dry and they're used in the right way and people maintain them as they have to, you're not going to have a problem with straw. Actually, I would give a 200-year guarantee to any straw building that's maintained properly. It's no problem, and it probably would last longer than that, but 200 years sounds like a good long time that you can guarantee something. Straw is the exact same ingredients as wood. Remember that. It's small pieces of wood, basically. It's a cellulose-based material. And we know that in the right treatments, cellulose-based materials last. They last a long, long time.
What sort of treatment do you have to apply?
You don't, actually. Well, 120, 160 years ago when they built those houses, there's no treatments you put on them. Also has, it has the natural barriers on itself, such as silicate, which is encapsulating the stalk of the straw. So this is naturally there. That's a fire retardant in itself. And it's durable. There's no food substance left in the straw. So the myth that rodents or mice are going to be eating straw is ridiculous because there's no food in it. It's a byproduct. Food has already been taken away. So you don't have that. So the key to it is keep it dry. Well, that's the key to wood as well. Let wood get wet, it's rotting. That's I live in Finland. It's the land of wood. Every house you are in, it's wood. My house here that we're in now is 100 years old. But all the walls are like 12.5 centimeter thick, stuffed with sawdust insulation. And I've opened these walls and it's perfect. Still smells like sawdust. You're working with bio-based materials. They have a really long lifespan. And I've worked on log buildings, as I said, that are 400 years old and they're perfect. And yeah, you might have some ruts and you cut back to the good wood and you have wood that smells exactly like it did, as if it came from the sawmill yesterday. You're remembering that, okay, that house might be 400 years old. The trees that were used for it were probably 200 or 300 years old. So you're looking at a piece of wood that's maybe 600 to 700 years old and it's perfect. Once the dry parts, it's perfect. So, there are myths. I think in the Nordics, we're very lucky. We have these bio-based materials a lot, and they have been used in history. Linen insulations have been used for a long time, sawdust insulations, and all of these houses, and it's still perfect. Now, if nothing's happened to it, you don't have to change it. The insulation value of it's very high still. So there are where it's going to rot. Of course it will, if you allow it to get wet, but so will wood. So will many other materials.
What are the most common techniques to avoid moisture to get in your panels?
On our panels, okay, we in general, to avoid moisture get in is build it well. Don't cut corners. So make sure you build, you design well and you build well. That's the first point. You build in the right conditions. That's the second point. And you don't, I can tell you of a few incidents that happened because the builders didn't care about what they were building. They just wanted the house up and, get it done as cheap as possible. And, we don't really care about what happens afterwards. That's just, that's a point we have to get over and get better building techniques going. But designing it well and building it well, for us, I think the key factor for us, our product, we say we have a 98% natural material. The 2% is a membrane we use on the outside, a diffusion open membrane to make the building airtight. This is actually a key. It's also a kind of a weather barrier during the first stages of the build, but it's mainly to keep it airtight. And if you're keeping it airtight but diffusion open, then you're keeping the material dry. As long as you do those details well, you're not going to get a very moldy or damaged material. And straw is quite easy to repair and it's quite easy to work with. So if there is, let's say in 20 years, a leak on the roof that comes down into the wall, you will spot this very quickly in the house. And it's very easy to repair because it stays very local. The water will not spread all over. It'll stay in this one space where it's leaking into. You can change this if you need to, or it will dry out. It's a natural material. And I think what many people don't know about natural materials, and I've worked 20 years now with natural materials and bio-based materials, is they have the capability to dry out where synthetic materials do not. So conventional materials are synthetic with a plastic barrier over the inside, because the idea is that you don't want moisture to go through the wall. You want to avoid that at all stages. But evidently, you're at some stage going to poke a hole in that plastic, because you're going to hang a painting on the wall, or you're going to do something, or someone's going to poke a hole. And then the amount of moisture that gets into that every day, it can be like 160 to 200 grams of moisture just through that little pinhole getting in every day. Synthetic material will now rot. It'll mold. It won't rot, it'll mold. It'll start to go black, and it can create mold spores in the air, creating an unhealthy indoor air climate in the building. You end up with mold problems, asthma problems, and it's a rolling effect. Using natural materials, this has the capability to dry out, because you're having a diffusion open material. You want the moisture to go through. You know that these materials can handle moisture. They will spread out and they will dry out. And they will continue like this for the whole of its life. The key is allowing it to go through and having no blockages. So going back to your paints that you talked about earlier, we're putting synthetic paints on our walls all the time, acrylic paints over materials. We're stopping the moisture from going through. And from Ireland, as in the UK, many of the old buildings built in the UK were built with massive stone, with lime plaster on the outside, lime plasters on the inside. Somebody paints those outside plasters. I see it in my siblings' houses in Ireland. They paint them with acrylic paints, Get your Dulux out and paint the whole outside and cover up your beautiful lime plaster. And I guarantee you within a few years, you'll start to see the plasters cracking, because the stone wants to sweat. It wants to get the moisture out, and it has to find a way. So now you've got cracks, and people then come along and fix those cracks with cement, paint over it again with more Dulux, more cracks a couple of years later, and I can't figure out why there's cracks coming. It's the sweat. It's the stone sweating. It wants to get rid of the moisture inside of it. And with lime plasters and lime paints, that will just go straight through and release. It's the plastic paints have been blocking up, and the plastics on the insides, and the gyprock and more plastic paint.
Interesting. I should have.
You're creating bombs inside in the walls. So natural materials allow moisture to flow. That's a really big key.
Previous episodes it's not been released at the time we speak, but it's with Fabia Bowman. And she's a moisture expert. So I feel like I should call her back and say, can you make a comment about this? And we'll add it.
We can have a debate sometime.
No, to add more to it and add more information as an expert.
You asked a little bit about my background. When I had the building company, we ended up doing research with Alta University on clay plasters, on molds and buildings, because a lot of our customers were actually mold affected customers. And they wanted to now find a natural way to build so that they didn't have these asthma problems and mold problems in their houses. And we built many houses for people who had serious problems with mold health, indoor air climate. And not only was this in their lungs, but now it was in their mentally as well. They couldn't go in because they thought they were going to be in a molded building. There's a statistic that there's 1 million people in Finland who work and live in molded buildings every day. And this has an effect on your health. You get nasal, you get, facial blemishes, acne, and then all the way to asthma and respiratory diseases. But it also goes to the mental side. And we've actually helped. I won't say helped, but we've built houses for people who were damaged like this. They've never come back to us. They're living perfectly healthy now, and they're happy, and they don't have any more symptoms. And they're able to calm and live their lives again. So it's very important, actually. The buildings we live in, the materials we use, it's extremely important. So that's how I got to Ecococon, actually, on doing this, is through the health effects. The whole climate thing came later. The whole CO2 thing came again later. But for us, we started wanting to build healthy buildings again.
Okay.
for people, for the environment, and for the welfare of an indoor air climate. That's where it all started for us.
How's the fire resistance of straw? And obviously, it must have some weakness. How do you overcome it?
Well, I suppose every material has a point where it will burn. Maybe concrete might stay, but the rest of the house will burn down if it's a concrete house or even a block house. But the concrete will eventually crumble as well. It'll crack and it'll find its weaknesses. With straw and with the same as with wood and everything else, they actually take some time to burn. With straw, yeah, of course, you'll burn loose straw very easily and it'll go up in smoke, and that's what people think of. But if you've compressed straw, as they're in our walls or in a straw bale, they're compressed anything between 110 and 120 kilograms per cubic meter. I mean, it's really solid. And you try to take one just normal straw bale from a field that's well packed. It's not, the strings aren't loose, and you try burn it. I mean, there's even videos on YouTube that show this, fire departments in France trying to burn a straw bale in a lab, and they can't burn it because it's so well compressed. Like wood, it will char on the outside, and then the flames will go out, and then you have this char layer, but underneath it, like within half a centimeter to 1 centimeter, it's perfect straw again. And this takes time to burn. Now you think of full walls compacted with very little air. It's like between 5 and 7% air inside this compressed wall, and you're trying to burn it. We recently did a new fire test in Fires, which is in Czech. It's a laboratory in Czech that does European standard fire testing, where we've done all our fire testing. We took our new V2 panels, version 2 panel, built a 3-meter wall, 30-centimeter panel with no layers, no clay, no plasterboards, nothing on it, just the bare stone. We got to 52 minutes, and the actual wall fell out of the chamber because of the insert pieces they used to hold the walls in the chamber. They burned before the straw did. The wall fell out, so they had to cancel the test at that point, and we got an REI 45. But we were at 52 minutes. If that hadn't fallen out, we probably would have got to 60 minutes, and it would have passed the 60-minute test with nothing on it. We need 30 minutes for a normal house. So just our straw wall itself is reaching 45 minutes. If we start to put layers on top of that, so clay on the inside, wood fiber on the outside, the membrane and the wood fiber, we can reach 120 minutes both sides. And that doesn't mean that the test failed. That just turned it off after 120 minutes because it's 2 hours of burning, and they tried to take off the clay layer on the inside, and you can see these tests on our website. Actually, the results of them are there.
Sorry, can we describe the panel just for people to understand what it's made of?
So we are basically, if we consider just our wall panel, it's a double load-bearing timber frame. The timber frame is made of wood that is what you would call in the UK 2x4s, or so 95 times 45 outer skin and an inner skin, and then it's compressed straw into the middle of this. So we have 6 different types of panels: braced panels, inclined panels, sills, lintels for over and under the windows, and we have columns and standard panels. And we've just put a new version of panel now, a new structural version as well, but pretty much the same. And it's just compressed straw into this with a plywood lid on top and bottom. That's it. It's load bearing up to 6 stories. So we can stack these panels on top of each other, and the loads can be taken all the way through.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the load bearing capacity.
So it's, after that, it's about 110 kilonewtons per meter. So basically, then we just screw those panels together. They come in elements up to 3 meters high, 850 wide, and we have 2 thicknesses, 30 centimeters and 40 centimeters. And it's Lego. So many builders call it big boys Lego. It's literally, it comes as blocks, and you're putting them beside each other and you're screwing them together. And this is developed again into other systems now for the bigger buildings we're doing and stuff. And but it's the same principle. So we can deliver to a tiny extension onto a house, to the massive buildings we're building now in Sweden and Holland at the moment.
Yeah, so was it in France that you're building a tall building with those panels?
In Sweden.
In Sweden.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit more about that project?
It's a project in southern Sweden, in Malmö, in the city of Malmö, right in the middle of the city. Well, it's in a new district area of the city that's been built called Hyllie. It's a 12-story apartment building, and it's 10 stories on living. And there's a ground floor with shops and a cafe and stuff like that. The top floor is traditional. It's a storage area for the apartments on the top floor and where they keep the energy. There's a basement also where they'll have like space for bicycles and things like that. The only concrete used in the building was in the foundations, and they used both recycled and 50% less carbon type of material. It's with fly ash in it, a couple of other things, and then they used no rebar, a metal rebar. They used basalt rebar instead. So in the building, and that comes 50 centimeters up the ground, above ground level, and from there up, it's CLT. So the main core of the building, the whole way up, is wood. It's kind of CLT structure, and then our elements are the outer leaf of the building. And so it's a Passive House certified building. There's 62 apartments going to be in total in the whole building. And again, it's all bio-based materials. So, and yeah, it's built now. The roof is just going on this week, I think. So the 12 stories are up, all with our elements. So it's like each floor. And basically they started building it in end of September. The foundation was done before that. So they've built the whole building in almost 3.5 months, up to 12 stories. It'll be finished in December this year, 2025.
I thought you had
it's
also internal panels to make internal walls.
In principle, we have in this because of the structures in this particular building. The structure is also the load-bearing structure is also CLT, so all the internal walls are taking loads, and they're all built with CLT. So it's only in this building, it's only outer leaf. Here is a prime example of fire ratings. People ask, how did you pass the fire ratings on this? So we basically gave our wall system, which is in this particular case is a 30 centimeters thick straw wall, and we calculated the fire rating on that. Their consultant in Sweden, the fire consultant, calculated it, and then they chose fire rated materials for the outside and for the inside, which were added to ours. And then we did what's called a WUFI calculation, which is a moisture simulated calculation, and some other moisture tests to see if this wall buildup is both fireproof for the fire resistant for this building, and also has the right moisture. The moisture can pass through it, and that it's diffusion open enough that we don't get mold and we don't get damage, we don't get anything in the system. Yeah, I mean, it's 2 years of planning. It's actually more. It's about 4 years of planning in total. 2 years of planning with us.
A lot of questions popping out, but how expensive or cost effective is it to build with those panels?
Straw. Well, I think it's a big question. It's not the cheapest. It's not the most expensive, but it's somewhere in the middle is what we're finding out everywhere.
But because it's quicker, maybe it could be cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, it has a lot of benefits other than that, such as the energy efficiency. We're going to say they're not having put as huge an energy system into this house, or, it's going to save a lot of energy inside. There's the health benefits, of course, but just the speed of build, of course. They are assembling as another method that has been used for these big projects as we ship our elements to them in Sweden. They have an assembly hall where they're assembling large wall systems with the windows, doors, inside material, outside material, everything's finished. They're lifting them in like 6 and 7 meter lengths of walls, like CLT or like a concrete element that's you see being lifted into building sites all that. But now it's a straw element. And it's fully finished, it's going into the wall, and it's weather tight already. They're able to produce one whole floor of this house in 1 week. So it's the CLT core goes up, pillars go up, our walls go up in the next level of CLT, and then the next floor and the next level. So every week there's about 150 to 200 square meters of our walls pre-assembled, delivered to the site, clicked into place between their CLT structure. This is not a load-bearing straw building. CLT is the load-bearing capacity. our walls are curtain walls, so it's mainly the insulation value of the outside of it. This is the tallest straw building in the world at the moment. It will be for 1 year. Just a taller one just about to come in Holland, actually, 2 stories taller. So that's in the plan at the moment. So,
do you have internal designers who will also help design the buildings or the structure?
we have internal designers, yes, but they're mainly working on what we call a panel project, which is our design for the elements to go to production. And they're all engineers, so they're calculating all the loads that we get from the external architect or local architect and local engineer. So we work closely with local engineer and architect. They send us all the drawings. So in principle, most houses are bespoke. Some people have designed kit houses or type houses, and they replicate these. We ultimately still have to do the first design for those of our wall system before they replicate them. So in principle, we're designing everything from scratch. We're taking all the information from the local architects and engineers. We don't design houses ourselves. We producers of wall systems, and we are also facilitators to help architects. So we try to make all the design techniques and details and stuff. If you check on our website and in the technical document section, you'll find whole booklets of details and documents that we make it easier for the architect or engineer to design with our system. And we do now from 2025, from the end of this quarter, we're putting on our website an academy where if you're an architect and you want to learn how to design with Ecococon or an engineer or even a building contractor, we will have an online module course that you can do and get certified for. And then we can, work with you in the future, knowing that you've done this. So it's building trust and building the networks.
It's a really good idea. I love online courses, and that's what we're doing with, as I was telling you offline, with another business. And I think online courses is one of the future, especially for, if not just academics, but also companies who want to educate about their products. And I think it's just one of the best ways to do it. It's a really good idea.
Yeah. Now we're looking forward to it. But as you know, you're going to start one. This is a lot of work. It's not just something.
But yeah.
There's whole modules that we have to design, all the questions to go with it, test thing. Yeah. The whole CPT certifications have to be then modified through our CRM system so that when you click in to do your course and you put in all your details and you've passed the course, you're automatically sent out a CPD certification to say, we're done, you're done.
Yep. That's exactly what we do.
But it's months and months of work for 2 people to set this up. It's and we're doing it for a multiple array of contractors, architects, engineers. Each one is different. It's not like it's the same test for everybody.
Maybe you have to add some, like a chapter or section on acoustic design.
Yes, we sure will. As I discussed with you also, we're doing a lot of stuff on acoustics because it's important.
Right. Well, good transition.
Yeah.
There's acoustics.
Big way into this one.
Yeah. Well, you showed me some data earlier. And if people want to see it, they need to request it from you, I guess. But it's obviously some very basic numbers, but it looks quite good. So RW60, 61 is the maximum achieved for an external wall. Sorry, it's pretty good. And I don't know if you've got anything to add to this. I've got other questions.
No, we've always had quite a high. I mean, it's again not beating the bio-based material or natural material drum, but as I said, I've worked in log buildings for years, and you go into old log houses, they're always quiet. There's always this kind of harmonious calm inside. You don't see kids screaming and running around the place. There's something about them that calms them down. It's almost grounding is the word I would use. And this is super similar with straws. You walk into somebody's straw building, and if I dare anybody to try it and walk into a building that's made with natural materials, you actually feel calm. You can feel the quietness, and they're really well insulated mostly. So we've always known that straw has a really high acoustic value. But we've been doing, of course, more modern tests. We have a timber frame structure, and one of your guests coming on soon will be able to tell you more because they did a test with us, is with the EWS screws. Yeah.
Yes, the acoustic screws.
The acoustic screws, and we did a test with them, and actually they were fantastic. We screwed gypsum boards in the test onto our panels, and we actually achieved 16 decibels extra with their screws.
Okay.
So that's something you can discuss with, I think it's your French colleague. David, yes.
Well,
yeah. Well, he'll be able to explain more about that. It really is remarkable what can happen with it. So 16 decibels, it's a lot when you want to do an apartment building, for instance, and you need to have a sound insulation between apartments. 16 decibels more is fantastic. So,
have you ever measured the sound absorption of a bare panel?
That's we're doing. Yeah, that's currently being tested because we have different ideas, and we have different projects where you have semi-detached houses, and they want to see can they have the center wall between the two houses as Ecococon as well. But we need to do a lot of testing around the flanking, around absorption between. The panel itself shouldn't be a problem. It's when you add the materials to it and then the flanking. These are the issues that we need to resolve. But I think with the right forming, for me, most of this is, taking a material and figuring out how to use it properly. It's design stuff and it's testing. And eventually you'll get the results you want to get using certain materials.
Because it just popped up. If you're working on scrolls, for example, you're going to have to provide some sound absorption to the space. And therefore, if the straw has some sound absorption properties, you could use that. If you add like a whole bunch of external walls, and then you could provide some sound absorption for free in a way. But obviously you may need to protect it. So either you put some maybe sustainable felt to protect it, and then you have some perforated material, or some slats, and you could absorb the sound pretty well.
Pretty well, yeah. Yeah. This is, and I mean, we have done it. Again, if you go to our website there, you'll on the pictures on the website, you can see a sound studio. It's a small little cube in the center of Helsinki. We did it with a very famous sound company here in Finland, Ecococon, who actually have done the Bolshoi Theatre and the Opera House in Norway and the Opera House in Denmark. And they're really well known around the world. And they helped us on this one, but it was for Aalto University. And it was for a sound artist, Ariel Bustamante. And this is a complete sound cube. Actually, it's for doing podcasts. And you can go inside the cube and you can discuss with one-on-one with people, and the whole thing is soundproof. It was so soundproof, we dropped it into the center of Helsinki, where all the trams are driving by it and all the trucks and the traffic. You couldn't hear anything inside it. It was perfect. This is now sitting in the yard of Aalto University's campus here in Finland, and they use it still. Sound students use it still as a studio. So it is possible, and you are right. The straw has amazing possibilities, and yeah, it's stuff we're looking at, where we have been testing, because for us, we're building houses. The most important thing would be the sound walls or the partition walls between two houses. If they can be built with Ecococon, this is fantastic. But it's all down to what the neighbor can hear and what travels through.
Yeah. Obviously, with only this solution I've just said, this would only be in very specific situations. But
it is. Yeah, I mean, acoustically, there have been many sound studios. I think, if I'm not right, was it Red Hot Chili Peppers built their sound studio from straw, or one of the big rock bands? I can't remember which one, but I think it was the Chili's. Yeah, they built it from straw. So
you mentioned about podcasts. Like pods, you're going to have a podcast pod at Future Build soon, aren't you?
Yeah, we just agreed it. So there's, it's podcasts. Yeah, we're building a booth from Ecococon in the middle of Future Build, where there's going to be 3 days of podcasting. And I think it's Darren Evans' podcast, the construction podcast. They're running it. It's filmed as well, but everything's going to be Ecococon. Yeah, that's quite exciting and interesting.
Maybe if we have a podcast booth in Natural Education's office, we'll have to get in touch.
You'll have to get in touch, yes.
But there's a lot of benefits of doing it online, because you can have lot more guests.
Yes.
Um,
I think they have
this way.
10 to 12 guests invited for future build to come and speak.
Can we mention? I can see I'm on your website, and I was asking you. Well, I asked you at the beginning what sort of buildings you can build, and you can see some schools and some houses. You mentioned the studio, so you can basically build any building. There's a gym here. You can build anything with those panels.
In principle, and yeah, we're in the planning stage. I mean, there's a quite a really huge project now. I think it's the biggest in Europe, if not the world, of its type. Where we're going to be the wall system for this, and it's happening in Holland. Should be released this week, actually. So, and it's a logistics center. So you can keep an eye out for that one on LinkedIn and stuff with us. You'll start to see pictures of it very soon. We are working with a lot of bigger architects' offices like Henning Larsson, Sweco here in the Nordics, Ramble, White Architects, Tenboom, a lot of the larger, even discussions have been happening with big architects. And we're doing this in many countries. And the projects are getting predominantly larger. So we're majorly going into B2B projects now. Everything from factories, our own factories built with, our new factories built with Ecococon also. Schools, daycares, and we have a hospital building that is being looked at now in one country, not far from the UK. Mm-hmm. And we have other high-rise buildings and a lot of housing developments. So we have 2 projects in Holland now. One has 89 houses being built at the moment. Semi-detached housing area, and it's all been done with Ecococon. So we started single-family homes, but it's developed a lot in the last 2 or 3 years.
How do you get but designers kind of answer the question, because you're going to have an online course to help them design with your systems. How to get contractors to buy into?
Yeah. Well, again, education is going to be one of the key things. Parts of Europe are catching up, parts of it are way behind. It's very unbalanced how things are moving in the different countries in Europe. You look to countries like Holland and Denmark at the moment. I won't even say Finland because it's way behind in this sense. Sweden is quite far up as well. But you look to Denmark, for instance, and they made it a law last year in Denmark that carpenters, tradespeople, they all have to learn now how to use bio-based materials, because it's written into the government's legislation now that buildings have to be carbon neutral and they have to use more bio-based materials. The Dutch government changed their whole legislation. They actually have a book that came out, and actually, funny enough, the picture on the front of the book is an Ecococon straw wall system. Yeah. It's funny, but they actually have released a whole book stating that you have to use bio-based materials now. It is now got to be in your buildings, and they're even looking at the farmers who are not have land that's not being used. Yes, to grow bio-based materials on the land, to be used in the buildings that they're going to build, because they recognize that we have land that's not being used, we have construction that's is such high levels of, we know what it's doing to the world, the construction industry. And how do we change it? We change it with bio-based materials. We bring down everything we use. And they're not even asking the questions anymore. Is it viable? That's why we're building the biggest, involved in the biggest logistics center in Europe, if not the world. And that's why they're looking at a 14-story building in Eindhoven next year being built. That's why there's housing developments going on, because it's in the legislation. The government have woken up and have gone, okay, if we cannot change the way that people are going to build, we're going to change the legislation of how you use the materials. And we'll legislate what materials you should be using. It's just common sense. And Denmark was followed. So, you educate the carpenters and the tradespeople in Denmark now. And they come out of school and they go onto building sites. And when somebody puts a hemp insulation pad in front of them, they go, okay, I know what this is. When they put, cellulose, they mention cellulose or wood fiber or using wood or straw. They're not going, have never heard of that before. I'm not using that, because that's the attitude of most builders in most countries. I haven't done that before. I'm not using it. So, okay, educate people to use it.
Well, if you want to hear more about the sustainability strategy of Holland, especially the city of Amsterdam, there's literally today that we released the episode with Chanda from the city of Amsterdam explaining everything.
Well,
very good timing.
The big building that's coming in Holland now is not far from Amsterdam, actually. So yeah. So yeah, Holland are quite far ahead. There's a lot happening there. It's
how about the UK?
UK, yeah. There's still stuff to be done. We're working on it. We're negotiating with people in the UK at the moment, saying who we will move forward with in the future. Yeah, there's a lot happening in the UK. But like Ireland, and we have hindrances. There are some certifications boards that I won't mention that make it difficult to get things through. So you have to find your own ways through. You have to get certified in certain ways. Legislation is not caught up yet in these countries. I could name maybe 5 countries in Europe where you can easily get everything done. Easily move through Holland, Denmark, Sweden. They're quite far ahead. Ireland is doing quite well, but there's still some hindrances from some councils there and stuff. They're following certain legislations that they're misunderstanding in my point of view, but and would be easy to get past them. It's similar in the UK. They're behind in certain ways, and there's quite a few things to change. But you got to familiarize all of these materials. You got to get people thinking and working with them and saying, hey, this is normal now to build with. And this is for, I'm looking, you do this now in 10 years' time when the 12-year-olds running around or the 15-year-olds running around kicking football now are going to build their houses. It should be, that it's not abnormal for them to build with straw or to use natural materials in their house. So we've got to, it's not 10 years goes past very fast. We've just got to educate people, put it in the education of all of these carpenters and builders, and then they're not adverse to using these materials either, and they don't see it as a bad thing. And the designers are the first key, they're the influencers. So the architects are the ones who influence their clients and influence the market. So they've got to get up to date. And in my mind, they've got to, start to look into the future, because this is what's happening. So, and the only thing we can do is provide the education, provide the ease of design, provide the tools for them to do this. And that's what we're trying to do all the time. That's where we see the market growing and market, getting into the market faster in each country. And, Europe has a lot to answer for, because they have set legislations, but a lot of countries are not following them in Europe, and they're battling them in that, I think Europe can do a lot more in making these legislations more accepted in each country and saying, no, we've set this, it works for each country, and this is how it should be. And then we can start to look at each country, like look at Sweden and say, okay, they're building a 12-story building. Why can't we do more than a 2-story building in the UK? That's the most you can do.
How about other countries or continents? I don't think we can say that the States are a very good place for sustainability, but
well, I think sustainability is managed in many different ways. So we've actually got very busy systems going in the States. We have a really good partner. I sell a lot of houses coming from Europe. We're just doing the recertification for the US now, and our goal will be to have a factory there within the next maybe 3 years. And I think, I think it's a weighing scale always. Some things will be taken away, but I think the building side of things won't be taken away so much. People are still going to have to save energy, still want to live in a quality, home. You're going to save a lot of energy building a passive house, which we are passive house certified product. So you can design a passive house with our system. And you're living, again, I go back to the health benefits of what we do, and the energy efficiency is another big one of what we do. The US has a problem in its many problems. I mean, they spend $4.3 trillion a year on health care. And a lot of that is, avoidable. They're losing the topsoil in the US. If you start to build straw houses with regenerative farmers, for instance, then you can save the topsoil and build healthy homes and take down CO2 emissions, because one of our factories will save more than what the US government are actually quoting as CO2 problem in their country. So there's a lot of roll-on effects of using bio-based materials in general.
You mentioned that obviously some factories are being built, so I was interested in how you guys finance them and how many new factories is going to be, and if you could indicate on the finances or a little bit.
Yeah, I can work with you on that a little bit. So basically, our goal, we've set ourselves a target by 2034. We want to be producing 1 million square meters of wall elements a year. Sounds a lot. Yeah, considering we're doing maybe 20,000 at the moment, the last years. But if you take, for instance, the total amount of square meters of buildings that were built in the EU in 2023, it was about 200 million. So take 1% of that, and let's say, we put up a factory in each country. We would need basically about 30 to 35 factories to be built to be able to produce 1 million square meters a year. Now, as I said, it sounds a lot, but it's actually not. That works out at about 2 houses per factory, per year, per week, to be moved out of the factories. Never ever we'd still only be 1% of the total amount of buildings that are being built, even with those 38 factories producing 2 houses a week. You're still only 1% of all the square meters being built in the EU. So it's not very much, actually, if you think about it. One factory can produce about 60,000 square meters, our new factory, which we opened in September. It's, again,
What country?
September last year in Slovakia, just outside Bratislava, not far from Bratislava. And that is a fully automated factory, so fully robotic, 4 robotic arms, creating up to 60,000 square meters of panels per year. We still have the old factory in Lithuania as well, which is semi-automated now. It was a manual factory, now it's semi-automated, which can produce, soon we'll be able to produce about 30,000 square meters a year. So, we have 2 shifts in those 2 factories. We're producing already 90,000 square meters a year. And with these projects that we have coming on the table, like the one in Holland, that's already 40,000 square meters for that one project. We get into projects like that, this goes very fast, actually. Whereas buildings, you have apartment buildings, you have developments, you have schools, you have houses. You're looking at easily now, just in the first year, about 100,000 square meters, first or second year. So we're looking to multiply that. We'll be looking at factory in the US, factories in Europe. So maybe in the next 5 years, another two or 3 factories maybe. And then from there, springboard. Because as you see these big buildings going up, as you see these developments going up, and as the quality has to be there, we have to build with quality always. People are going to see this too. People are going to go, okay, well, this is very doable. It'll start to get other bigger architects designing, other companies being more confident and trustworthy, trusting of the materials, because we're showing that you can do it. And it can be done really quickly, very fast, energy efficient and bio-based and healthy buildings going up. But the life cycle also, we have to take all of this into account, because you have, in the next year in most European countries, there's a legislation coming in to say that architects have to design the most carbon neutral buildings they can now, which means they have to start looking at the materials they're using. And not only that, but they have to calculate it as they're designing. They can't just design something and say, okay, let's do a calculate. They need to now look at the materials before they put it into their design. And they're going to start turning to all the bio-based materials, because they're least carbon intensive.
How do you finance? How do you fund these factories? Do you have investors?
Yeah, we're very lucky that in 2019, our current boss, our co-CEO and company director of the company, it's a woman from Slovakia who saw this as a way to to tackle a lot of issues around the world, environmental and social, and help to build better homes. Yeah, she got involved, and she has a wealth backing, and she has put a lot into this. She's brought it from what we were as a good company, but trying, struggling a little bit to keep, not to get enough in every year to keep things going, to now being quite a powerful face and growing company, very strong growing company. She has put money into the factory, into the development of the branding, into marketing, into hiring, into developing all different types of systems and bringing in the right people. She's been very brave for a young lady. She's very smart. She's very, there's a lot of power behind her. She's very quiet, very nice, but she's really cool, and she's done a lot. And I just see it growing more with someone like this. It's lucky we have this type of person behind us.
So you didn't, sorry, I'm going to ask you more questions, and you tell me whether you don't communicate on this. If you didn't look for any investors, she just came and said, I want to help you guys.
Back then, we looked for an investor. It was actually our CEO, Bjorn, who looked for an investor, and he started discussing with Petra. And she got interested, and it took many years, but she bought in the company, moved the headquarters to Slovakia, and since then it's just been an upward trend. So we've been growing mostly about 40% every year now, year on year, since she took over. And we're looking to keep growing this way all the way. So 40 to 50% every year. We just see it we can see it with the amount of leads that are coming in from all over the world. We can see how this is exponentially exploding. People are really interested. So, yeah.
Do you think it would have been possible without her? As in, you could have gone to banks and get loans?
Yeah. Maybe now the banks are opening up a little bit more to this. But back then it was kind of like, it was the same thing, same as going to a bank for your own business, and they just looked at it as this. We've met some banks, for instance, in Slovakia and in other countries, where they know that they have to go towards a green transition, and they know that by investing in these things, there's the ESG and the EU taxonomies, and now all the big developers are always also clicking into it. They know that they can get huge amount of tax rebate by using bio-based materials. So this is good in the legislation. But back then, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, no, I don't think that bank is not going to bankroll it. It's the same old thing. What have you got to show us? What have you got to put up against collateral? What have you got? So you need investors like this, impact investors who, are in it for the right reasons, not just money. So Petra wasn't about, okay, when do I get my return on investment? Of course, she needs a return on investment. She's investing a lot, but it wasn't always about when that's going to be or how long is that going to take. Or I think the main impact for her was, we can do this. She saw where this could go, and she's right. It's actually getting there now. It's where we're on the pinnacle at the moment. We're still going up. We're not really at the top yet, but we're not far from the top of the mountain yet.
I'm really interested at the moment in finance systems, where how do you grow your company? Do you take investment? Do you take loans? And there's pros and cons for everything. Or do you bootstrap everything? But obviously it's all dependent on different types of businesses, the products you sell, whether they're services or physical.
If you can find the investor who's interested, like I trust, then that's a dream come true. It's a really dream way to take your company forward, with somebody who also feels the same way about what's going on and wants to be a part of change and wants to be a part of the whole thing. The whole business is now built on a social scheme with, we're really interested in how our employees are going to be taken care of and how they're involved in it, and what, it's an employee-based system, so the employees will get back from this too. So we've created this social company where we believe in giving some back to, the company has to survive, and some back to the employees, and some back to helping others to develop other types of bio-based materials or other structures. Or so, no, it's not all about just profit, profit, profit. It's like, okay, how can we build this in the right way? How can we make it long lasting and sustainable and healthy the whole way through? So this is a big manifesto for us. It's how to do it. It's really important.
Is it written somewhere? I'm asking because we're, of the new company, we want to have the manifesto just very public and say, this is our values.
Well, we have it internally with everybody at the moment, but yeah, I'm sure at some stage we'll release parts of it out. A lot of this is still in the growth period and we're still developing the ways that we want to do things. So Petra came on board just over 5 years ago. So it's taken a lot to turn the company to now have a new factory. That was the goal within 4 to 5 years, and we've reached that. And a fully automated factory is the first of its type in the world. Every machine had to be designed from scratch. Every idea had to be designed from scratch of how to do this. And you're working with straw, robots and straw. It's just like, it's a contradictory thing, but it actually works. Yeah, so, eventually I think we will, once we're clear and we have over the whole manifesto built, then we would be open to looking at how we help others now too. Well, that is the goal, actually, how to give back as well.
Great. Touching the end, have you, obviously, some plans for the future, more factories? Have you got any products in mind? Maybe yes, maybe you don't want to say too much.
Well, as I said, our goal is within the next 3 to 5 years to have some more factories. So, we're looking at France, Holland, Netherlands, USA, UK, Ireland, maybe, somewhere close to Spain. These would be the strategic, I think, points that we're looking at the moment. Not to give too much away. Yeah, our goal is, we just need to build now, get this new factory up and running full scale, producing what it's possible to produce. And then, we tackle the next one. What's the next products? What's the next technological things we're going to do? There's a lot going on. We're developing internally and externally everything. So I would just say watch the space. It's coming quick. There's going to be a lot of new things happening in the next 2 years for Infinite. There's a whole new line coming out, and yeah, a lot of stuff going on.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much,
You're
Paul. How can we get in touch with you if people want to?
You'll find me on the website. You can find, as I said, our website is pretty open source. Go to the professional section on the website and you'll find the technical documents. You'll find all the documents about the system there. You find about the whole outlook of the company is there. You'll find us on all the Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're on most of everything there, Twitter even, I think. Personally, you can contact me at paul@ecococon.eu. Happy to answer any of the questions. We're in Futurebolt on the 3rd to the 4th to the 6th of March. We'll have the pod booth there where the podcast will be on, and we'll also have our own stand on the C2C community area. It's the 540 world, so we're part of this cradle to cradle community world there. And we'll be giving some presentations also and discussion panels in Futurebolt. So if you're around, please drop by. I think the stand was G20, and we're pretty much everywhere. So you'll find us if you're looking. We're happy to discuss with you, to meet you, to train you. We want to just spread the word. So we're here to do that. But thanks, Mark. I appreciate the invite.
No problem.
It was fun with all the technical start.
It's been a pleasure. It's obviously we're always keen to see new solutions, especially if they're made with as much bio-based materials as possible.
And that's, as I said, for us is the future. We want to see more of that. So we're happy to jump in with people and help as well. But thanks, and thanks everyone who's listening.
Yeah. Thanks again, and see you soon.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye, Paul.